Assalamu alaikum. This is Shakila, and we will continue on chapter 2. The book that I'm reading, it's called Nobleman from Khorasan by Khaliullah Khalili, and this book is about Shahid Habibullah Kalakani. And we will continue on chapter 2, page 10. A young boy like an eagle departed flocks of eagles amid rains of bullets and instants of death. He jumped from one stone to another and went back to the ground. He grabbed a mug of water and climbed up to Casa Burj. The scorching hot sun had dried every single drop of water from brave soldiers and dehydrated them. Thirst had reached its peak, and it had not overcome anyone. The eagle gave a few drops of water to a soldier and moved to the next one. The day and the bloody war were almost over. The enemy was defeated. Brave soldiers had conquered Casa Burj, and the army of enemy had vanished. The commander of the enemy army, Koe Nari, did not want to surrender. He exploded Casa Burj with gunpowder and ammunition, turning his soldiers into smoke and ashes. Soldiers collected guns as spoils of war. Bodies of brave soldiers were brought down from over the mountain and walls. The bodies were kept under a tree until the next day to be buried with the respect and dignity they deserved. The young boy who ran towards the enemy fires, carried water, and helped wounded soldiers was still alive. They named him Sakao, water carrier. It was the most rewarding name a soldier could achieve for his devotion, and sacrifice. Soldiers returned to the city and cared for wounded fighters. Among the wounded soldiers, many of them were prisoners of war. The British soldiers survived the explosion and battled, were cared for and treated with decency and respect. The war was over and there was no need for more violence and bloodshed. People from all over the city greeted soldiers and dined with them. Lanterns were lit in roads and lanes of Kabul. The night was bright and colorful like a day. Towers and palaces of princesses were in total darkness. It appeared the queen had not returned from Sherpur yet. Sakao and his friends entered the palace. Gulchehra, who had seen strength and bravery of the soldiers, opened the gates and welcomed them. Female slaves and bondwomen greeted the soldiers at the gate. Gulchehra hailed Sakao and his friends. Everyone had broken their fast, but Gulchehra was still fasting. She broke her fast with drops of water from the mug of Sakao. When her tongue touched the water, she felt chilling syrup of honey mixed with rose water in her mouth. Chapter 3, page 13, The Tent of Gandomak. The vicious, brutal army of Great Britain invaded Kabul from three sides to revenge the death of their soldiers. They had seized the capital and ruined Balahisar. The city was in absolute mourning. Patriot leaders from all over the country had gathered people and villages to fight the enemy and free the country. The enemy turned Kabul into the slaughterhouse of innocent people. Streets, roads were red. Many shot and left, and many shot dragged around the city. Friends and relatives of the ill king have convinced him to surrender and flee to India. A battalion of the British Army planned to escort the king and his friends to India. The British Army had installed tents for the king and his friends on a grain field of rice in Wheat and Gandomak village. Additional military camps were established around the king's tent to counter any surprise attack. It was midnight and the weather was hot and difficult to bear. Breeze rarely brought cold winds from the snow-covered mountains of Spengar. 2 big tents were in the area. The flag of enemy waved at the top of tents. The first tent belonged to the British Army, while the second one belonged to the puppet king of Afghanistan. The 2 big tents were guarded by many small tents. The king was a prisoner. His guards and advisors spied for the enemy. The enemy feared that the Afghanistani soldiers might attack the camps and free the king. The sky was clear, and the stars stared back with sorrow and grief. Giant luminescent spotlights were hanged on pillars of each tent, making them visible from far distance. Big, bushy cypress trees appeared like armored soldiers. British cavalry had cut mane of their horses. They feared that the white shades may expose them to Afghanistani soldiers and make them vulnerable during dark nights. British cavalry had uniforms like their skin color. They were nervous and their eyes dreadfully searched for Afghanistani soldiers. The nightmare of a bloody night had painted a tragic picture. The king was already captured, and the enemy took him where they go. It was not far gameplay. The king's friends and advisors had already sold their soul to the enemy for money and wealth, and those who had opposed were slaughtered. Balahisar became a hell of ashes. Afghanistani soldiers were wiped out from Sherpur. Once again, it became a British camp. The enemy still feared the most. Great Britain had learned that the people of this nation would never stop. They will always fight for sovereignty and freedom, and they will not listen to any king or emperor. Men, women, children, elders, farmers, laborers, literate, illiterate, they all fight against foreigners. They take order and lead whenever needed. They are kings and soldiers. And such a tragic day when the city bled, even the poorest, weakest of all shined like a sword against the enemy. It was a midnight in Gandamak. The ill and the imprisoned king was still awake. He sat on his throne and wondered about his horrifying fate. He was anxious and quiet. He had lost his dignity and pride among his people. His city drowned in tears, blood, and fire. His friends, ministers, advisors betrayed him and had become puppets of the enemy. He was worried because he did not know what was coming next, what was about to happen to his children. Where will he be buried? He did not have an answer to any of those questions. A curtain of his tent was pushed away and opened. He saw his friends and advisors in luxurious costumes. Many swords hanged from their shiny golden belts. Their silky mufflers, imperial turbans, were well-combed beard and smiling faces bothered him. They bent, bowed to the king. The king saw betrayal, fraud, treachery in their eyes. They glowed from joy. They were promised wealth and fortune by the enemy. One of the men broke the silence. His Majesty, the great king, we, as your servant, friends, ministers, and advisors, have convinced Great Britain to release you from this prison and escort you to a beautiful territory like heaven, where you can happily live. It is a place where you can hunt lions, ride elephants, live in luxurious places, and spend magical nights like legends. The second man continued, His Majesty, you have always told us heaven is where one has comfort and is free from work. We owe you this. Our dear king, you do not need to worry about rebels, lawless people. It is our responsibility to take care of them. Snowy, cold climate of Kabul will never bother you. All tensions and strains will go away forever. The king had no answer. He stared anxiously at his roof and laid in his right hand over his sword, the sword he had never used in his lifetime. His friends, advisors were mute and waited for his response. The curtains were pushed away once again. 3 men in military uniforms entered the tent without permission. Friends and advisors of the king stood up with pale faces bent, bowed to the men. As every second passed, the king learned that things were getting worse. The first man who entered the tent appeared to be a high-ranking official, while the other 2 men had leather hats with small, sharp fluke on them. A shiny, thin sword hanged on the soldier's belt. He had black, shiny boots and a brazen chain attached his hat to his check. Blue collar and stars on his chest described him as a commander. His eyes were blue like a cat and sharp like a wolf, demonstrating his brutality and cruelty. The 45 years old commander shook the king's hand with arrogance and sat in front of him. The sad king laid back silently. His Majesty, the Queen, the chief commander of seas and lands, has given me the privilege to deliver her message to you. King Amir Muhammad Yaqub Khan, son of Amir Sher Ali Khan, the Honorable King of Afghanistan. The Brit continued. Her Majesty, the Queen had ordered us to take you to India, where you can happily freely live under the protection of the Great Britain Empire. The Queen believes you are innocent, and we are committed to bringing your children, wives, and anyone you would like to accompany you safely with you. Her Majesty, the Queen will only undertake this commitment if you sign this agreement. Your friends and advisors accompanying you right now have expressed their consents about the contents of this agreement. The translator made a Dari copy from the English and submitted both copies to the king. The translation was ratified by Great Britain officer. The king grabbed the agreement and tried to read it by using his lantern lights. His hands trembled. The king, in an irritated voice, said, "You have no right to take away the independence of my country and forcefully escort me to a foreign country. How would you expect me to sign such a shameful treaty that deprives freedom from my people and independence from my nation?" The black-eyed Afghans and blue-eyed Brits gazed at each other, signaling treachery and deception. His friends and advisors slowly approached the king and offered him their advice. "Dear King, as your royal friends, we believe there is no way but signing this treaty. If you do not sign this agreement, it means everyone, including your friends and families, will be killed." The king's hand trembled like a naive leaf against a strong storm. He tapped his fingers over his sword, handled, and paused for a few seconds. He put the treaty on his desk and signed it. His friends and advisors cheered, applauded, and signed the treaty as witnesses. It was close to dawn. The sky was blue, and the morning ended silently in Gandamak village. The tents of the enemy were gone from the Gandamak village. Chapter 4, page 20, A Daughter of Bamiyan. Her childhood was filled with love and affection in her parents' house. Her mother loved her, and her father cared for her. It was everything she ever needed. She knew she could run to her mom and seek shelter anytime. She was not afraid of thunderstorms, earthquakes, snow hills, and flood. Her mother kept her safe. She asked her mother, "Hug me, hide me in your arms." No place was safer than her mother's arm for her. She could spend the harshest days and nights in her arm without any fear. Her mother's arms were the safest place for her. She stayed over her bed late nights and sang and whispered her favorite lullaby. "My love for you is immortal and forever, like the lonely nights without mornings, with those beautiful smiles and sweet frowns. If you look at me, I taste sweetness on my lips. Gulchehra still felt the warmth of her mother's kisses on her cheek and forehead. She could remember the beautiful story of the two big idols her mother had told her. The giant idol was named Salsal, while the smaller Shah Maha Salsal. Salsal was the son of Jahan, the wrestler of Bamiyan, while Shah Maha was the daughter of Mir of Amir River. Salsal was the bravest, strongest wrestler that ever lived. Shah Maha was a symbol of beauty and courage. Once upon a time, Salsal saw that Shah Maha fell in love with her. The feelings were mutual. Shah Maha loved his bravery and heroism. The story of Salsal falling in love with Shah Maha became a tale across Bamiyan and Amir River. Mir of Amir River did everything to postpone the matchmaking of Salsal and Shah Maha. Nevertheless, inevitably, he put forward his conditions for the engagement. A blockage must be built against Amir River. Whenever the water rises, it must not destroy and wash out the people's farm. It must always help people with crops in times of drought. Wild tigers that created fear and panic among people must be stopped and killed. And finally, the two-headed dragon, which had burned and killed 40 innocent girls with his flaming breaths, must be hunted down. Once these conditions are met, Salsal can marry Shah Maha. Salsal spent 3 years to build the blockage. He killed the wild beasts and tigers. He hunted down the two-headed dragon by the sword made out of ancient steel. He ordered the men to make a carpet from the skin of the dragon for his beloved. Because of his accomplishments, Bamiyan and the Amir River area were as green and as spacious as heaven. People were very happy. They dreamed about the wedding day. They decorated the entire city by the flowers to express their gratitude for Salsal and Shah Maha. The groom was a symbol of bravery, and the bride was a symbol of beauty and morality among people. Everyone joined the ceremony to celebrate. The elders in Bamiyan and the Amir River requested their people to carve 2 monuments honoring the bride and the groom. Everyone welcomed the recommendation and carved 2 monuments. The first one was carved by people of Bamiyan in honor of the bride, and the second one by the people of Amir River in honor of the groom. It was proposed that the groom must stand next to the monument built by the bride's people, and the bride stand next to the monument built by the groom's people. People of Bamiyan and Amir River will stand in line and praise the marriage. Nowruz, the New Year festival, was celebrated with profuse magnitude than ever before. Spring arrived. The next morning, the bride and the groom appeared in elegant dresses together, and the beautiful morning breeze added to their beauty. The branches of almond and apricot trees became colorful with blossoms. The beautiful blue sky and the chirping of birds from over the stones and walls gave strength to every soul. Brindled fish jumped and played on waves of silver like streams and lakes. The spots on their skins seemed like seeds of ruby, igniting charm and magic. Gazelles with tall wrapped horns, leaping deer with small horns moon-like jumped and ran into the circle across the green fields. In the chest of mountains range, 3 lines were drawn like a cloth of beautiful silk, a vivid white line along the snow-covered castle, a green emerald line along the thick trunk of green forest, and a red twilight along the tulips lawn. It felt like life with love breathed inside every object. Stones, flowers, trees whispered to each other. Every drop of water and every bit of soil felt joy and happiness. Salsal was covered with curtain made out of colorful silk, and Shah Maha was covered with curtain made out of soft green silk. The plan was to push away the curtains when the sun rises so the people could see the brave man of Bamiyan, Salsal in the Angel of Amir River, Shamaha for the first time. They wanted to send waves. They wanted to send waves of happiness across the mountains and seas. The curtains were pushed away. 1,000 hearts and eyes that beat like mills and never blinked suddenly were shocked in silence. It was the silence of death, shock of horror. Yes, both lovers had turned into stone. They were stones, yes, soundless stones, cold and breathless. People bent and bowed from fear and horror. From that day onward, Bamiyan has named the Temple of Love. People decided to mourn one night every week for two failed lovers. Golchehra quoted his mother, "This is the secret of the Temple of Love in the City of Screams." Golgola. Whenever Golchehra thought about her childhood friends, tears fell from her almond-shaped eyes. She felt pain. The clapping of her father's horse always awakened her from slumberland. She could remember the days when her father put her on horseback and carried her across the river in forests. She was always loved and cheered more than her siblings. She whimpered and mourned those days now. Thank you for listening, and inshallah we will start chapter 5 on page 26. It's called